everyone. Welcome back to Women's Plate. I'm Brooke.
And I'm Sola.
And today we are hosting Serena Advani. She is CEO and founder of Seadrop Skincare, and incredible. So we would love to we're hosting her, going to talk about her experience and journey. So I'd love to pass on to her. Maybe just give us a little intro and tell us about your company.
Yeah, it's so great to be here. For a bit of context, I'm the founder of Seadrop. We are reinventing skincare as tablets instead of liquids to benefit your skin and the planet. 90% of a traditional face wash is water, which just makes no sense to me. It's expensive to ship, stored in plastic, filled with artificial preservatives because water breeds bacteria. So I dehydrated that cleanser into just the concentrate that you activate with your tap water. The brand is zero waste, travel friendly, clean, cruelty-free, derm tested, and formulated to the standards that fit the skincare needs for all skin types. It's also inspired by my Indian heritage based on the waterless skincare I grew up with my grandparents and generations past from India.
That's amazing. I love that. And such an incredible idea. Obviously completely unique in solving such a big problem in skincare right now. Would love to just maybe take a step back and learn a little bit more about you, your journey of how you got here. I know you used to work at McKinsey. I think you spent some time at Estee Lauder as well. So maybe just talk about your career background and what led you and inspired you to found Seadrop.
Yeah, definitely. So I think it comes in like two phases. One is just when I was younger, I found so much of relief with the skincare rituals I grew up with. Again, like in my kitchen in North Carolina with my mom and my grandma, we were literally mixing turmeric and sandalwood and chickpea flour with water to create these Indian face masks and cleansers. And I remember that they worked really well, but I kind of saw that as just a stress reliever and not really my career. Fast forward like 20 years later, and I'm studying neuroscience in college, really interested in consumer behavior, still don't really know what I'm gonna do with it until I get to consulting. That's when I realized that if I'm going to work that hard at anything, I am so content driven. I really want to be passionate about what I'm working on. And I ended up switching my work focus to just consumer, retail, and mostly beauty, private equity due diligences, where I found my love for the beauty industry professionally. And after that, I was motivated to learn about how that works in the industry, worked at Estee Lauder companies on brand strategy for Bobbi Brown. And that's where, first, I loved the industry, had a really great time, but that's really where I learned that skincare is mostly water. And I learned about all these issues that come with it, from packaging to travel unfriendliness with TSA to the preservatives that are added in. And I was like, why has no one thought about rethinking how we do skincare? And the idea just clicked a couple years ago. That's how the idea for Seadrop was born. And I'm excited to say that we launched just a couple months ago, and we're now bringing these patent pending tablets to life.
That's awesome.
That's amazing.
And I know we all met in college. You mentioned you studied neuroscience and consumer behavior, and then that kind of got you into consulting. I'd love to hear more about, I guess, your thought process when you were going through a traditional consulting background to being a founder, especially, you talked about patents. I'm sure you have formula that's very specific to the tablet. So how did you kind of and you had like the business aspect of starting a company, but how did you kind of go about going through R&D and going through, I guess, the science-backed technology and the ingredients of Seadrop, and then use, I guess, your business background to kind of help launch your company?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's, a lot that goes into creating a brand, especially a physical product in beauty. There are so many hats you have to wear, from product development to formulation to testing to brand design and web design to the actual business aspects. And I'd say that from the science background, what really helped me was understanding the basic chemistry of what goes into a skincare product, and also understanding the true scientific nature of each ingredient rather than just whatever you see in pop culture, because I know there's a lot of misinformation and there's also just a lot of information out there and it's easy to get overwhelmed. So the science background helped me, one, communicate really clearly with my formulator on what ingredients I wanted, because you have to direct them, especially when creating a new format like this. Two is, instead of like researching ingredient trends online or on social media, I was like, okay, why not just go to the NIH or to, like an actual like PubMed and looking at research articles online, and being able to speak that language really helped. But then on the other end, the business side of things is also so important, and that's like half the battle here. So I think that everything I learned in consulting consulting and working in beauty helped with formulating the brand strategy and ethos for this, because there's so much that goes into this beyond just the science and formulation. And even if you have a really great product, if you don't teach people about it, then it doesn't even, it won't get anywhere. So I think that's why I have to kind of now switch hats all the time. And I have like different days that I allocate for different, like creative versus science versus design versus marketing. And I think that really helps compartmentalize. But there are just a lot of components to it, and it helps to have varied experiences to put it all together for a brand.
Right. And I think it's really unique in that you have those different hats. I feel like a lot of first-time founders only, focus on the science aspect or the business aspect, but I think the well-rounded experiences really have helped Seadrop be as good as it is now. I'd love to talk a little bit about, I guess, more on the business education front. We know that you went back to Wharton for your MBA. What made you want to go back, and did you have a specific goal in mind at that moment? Did you want to start a company? Was there a story or an instance where that made that a reality in terms of, you wanting to become a founder after B school?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of people go to business school to become a founder. I was not one of those people. I actually went to business school purely because when I worked at Estee Lauder, I learned that at a large beauty company like Estee, you need an MBA. It really helps accelerate you on that path to promotion, and it's just kind of expected at a bigger company like that. I went in thinking I'm going back to more, McKinsey or Estee Lauder type paths. But once I got to school, I realized that first I had the idea for Seadrop while I was in business school. Then I realized I was so passionate about this idea that if I don't do it now, I would regret it for the rest of my life. And that thought process, I don't think would have happened if I just went in looking to found something. I think it happened because I kind of put together my first year in business school, that waterless concept from growing up, and that idea of that could be the solution for the water-based skincare that's, 90% of each product right now. Once that idea clicked for me, I was like, I have to do it now or I will just regret it forever. And I switched my path from what I expected while I was in school.
That's really incredible. I love this idea that you said, like, you weren't looking to be a founder, but you were so excited about this idea. I think that's really unique. Personally, I think I hear a lot of people who say, like, I want to found a company. I don't know how. I don't have an idea, but I want to be a founder. And there are even so many, like, incubator programs and, like, founder sort of matching programs and things like that. Would you say someone who, like, just wants to found a company maybe is doing the wrong thing and instead maybe should be looking for the right idea? Or what's sort of your opinion on that?
Yeah, I think it's so personality dependent. And I know for myself, at least, I'm just so driven by the content and the mission. And if I were starting a company for the sake of starting a company, but it wasn't a mission I was so aligned to, honestly, I probably would have quit. But because this is something I'm so insanely passionate about, and also it's something I've put my whole heart into, it's a product that I also love and stand by personally, I think that's what keeps me going. But it's personality dependent, and I know other people that are more motivated about creating something because that's also really unique and really fun. So I would say just know yourself, and if you're really content driven and really like passionate about that content and product, that it maybe makes sense to find that fit first before starting something. But if you know that you're the kind of person who just wants to build for the sake of it, then maybe you could still have success, but knowing your personality kind of helps with that one.
I love that. That's really great. I think that's like really great advice for our listeners too. And I would love to learn just more about your products. What are your products that you offer? Obviously, we understand like the tat-based idea. Would love to just learn a little more exactly what you offer in your product suite.
Yeah, so we launched with one SKU.
Okay.
It's this patent pending hydrating facial cleanser that comes in tablet form, and it works by you just take one, you crush it with dry hands into the palm of your hand, add a couple drops of water, mix it, and then it turns into this foaming face wash that takes off makeup, dirt, oil, SPF, hydrates your skin, balances it, doesn't leave a film, uses ingredients like hyaluronic acid, which is a blend of 3 molecular weights of hyaluronic acid to hydrate, and other plant-based ingredients like blue butterfly pea flower powder, orange extract, papaya extract to strengthen your skin barrier and soften it. So I really wanted to do this one product right before launching other SKUs. But I will say, before I launched Seadrop, I made sure that we can replicate that same tablet format across categories, not only in skincare, but also in body care and in hair care down the road. Wow. So right now, one product, we're expanding with other kind of like adjacent products in the cleansing category. So we're actually about to launch little travel tins. I have one here, but But this little travel tin holds a 2-week supply of cleanser, even though it's tiny.
I love that.
It's also TSA friendly. And then we're also about to launch these cleansing headbands and wristbands that prevent the water from dripping down your arms and getting in your hair. But the plan is to eventually expand into other categories down the road.
That's amazing.
This is awesome. I feel like since, I'm sure your target demographic are people who are traveling a lot. So I think the fact that it's TSA friendly is amazing. And I haven't really seen that before. So I guess when you were launching, are there competitors in this space that are doing the same thing as Seadrop? Because I'm not super aware of it. And this seems really revolutionary. But what's in the space right now?
Yeah, no one is doing these waterless crushable tablets. And I think that's what's really exciting about it, in that the waterless category kind of exists. Like, people have bar soap. There are a couple other formats. There's like powder products, but no one is doing this crushable tablet right now. And that's what's so exciting about, something that's first of its kind, foams up, and has a format that people really haven't seen before. And it, brings a lot of education challenges, but it's fun to be the first to bring that to life.
I love the idea that the amount is measured out for you as well, because I feel like I personally waste so much skincare, or often I'm washing my hands with moisturizer off, or wasting it. And I think that's really incredible too, that you've really measured out a specific amount that's right for the person, which is great, and also prevents waste. Just really, really exciting. So that's awesome. And I know you've obviously been around the beauty industry a lot. Would love to just learn more about, obviously you have such a passion for it, maybe something you learned from the industry that you found interesting or unique.
Yeah, one of my favorite fun facts about the beauty industry is actually related to the lipstick effect.
Okay.
I don't know, have you guys heard of this concept?
I've not.
So the context is that it was actually coined by, I want to say, Leonard Lauder a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But researchers found that women purchase more lipstick in economic downturns. And the theory around that, we actually talked about this in econ class freshman year, but the theory was that these were little luxuries people would buy when they were feeling other economic pressure, because you can't go buy a Louis Vuitton handbag, but you can go buy a $30 lipstick. That's still expensive, but attainable at that point in the economy. What I learned that I thought was so interesting, and I only learned this while starting Seadrop and talking to retailers, is that there might be another reason why that lipstick effect happened. It's not just because people want a little luxury, but it's also because in those times of economic downturns, women started to work. And it was so interesting. They were buying lipstick just to have something to wear into the workplace, which I think is a really interesting way of looking at the data, something that you wouldn't understand unless you're talking to these women, because it doesn't come through on just the sell-through reports. But that one I thought was so interesting, such a cool fun fact. I haven't heard anyone else talk about it. And it was actually a merchandising officer at Ulta who shared this with me. And I was like, oh my God, that makes so much sense. It stuck with me as one of my most interesting facts about the beauty industry that isn't talked about a lot.
I love that. I think that's such a good fact. And also just really shows people just underestimate women when they analyze data, and they actually have really don't know us, which is really reflective, I think, even in a consumer beauty industry, which is for women, by women, dominated by women. The analysis is wrong, because actually the understanding of women is missing, which I feel like Seadrop does really well. You're really actually trying to understand your consumer, because you are one. You were obviously highly successful, very driven consultant who is traveling all the time. Realized there really was this missing, which is amazing, and the level of convenience. And honestly, I feel you've put in so much of your heart in it, which I love, and I can definitely see it. That's awesome. That's awesome. I love a lipstick effect. We should honestly do a whole episode on that.
Yeah, we should. We definitely should. We'll do some more research.
Awesome. And what would, I would say, I think you've mentioned you recently launched. I would love to just learn a little bit more about your launch journey. I know you mentioned kind of going through the formulation of the product and that process. Maybe what was a big challenge that you faced, or some advice you would have for someone kind of going through the similar process of trying to launch a new product?
Yeah. So for context, there were a couple phases in the Seadrop journey so far. One was in the pre-launch concepting phase, where that's when I had the idea for the tablet, where honestly at first I was thinking, do we want to do a bar? Do we want to do powder format? I wanted something that was unique, didn't exist in the market, and that's how we came up with the tablet format. The second phase was formulation and getting a really great chemist, cosmetic chemist and formulator on board who helped create this tablet and guiding her on the ingredients that we wanted to include. The next step was finding a contract manufacturer. And again, this is all pre-launch, and that's when you find someone that can actually build this at scale. And in parallel, you're looking for packaging, you're looking for a web designer, you're looking for a brand strategy, your fonts, your colors, and that's kind of everything that happens until launch. After launch, there's a whole growth marketing plan, getting your warehouse set up, shipping practices, all of that. But that's kind of the timeline of Seadrop so far. I'll share one challenge and then some advice for other entrepreneurs in 2 parts. One challenge, I think this is just kind of a funny story, but 2 weeks before Seadrop launched last summer, I got a call from my manufacturer, and they were like, yeah, we tried to granulate the powder for the Seadrop product before they press it into a tablet, and the powder was ground so finely that it was sticking to the machinery, kind of like powdered sugar.
Wow.
And they were like, yeah, it's not flowing through properly. We can't turn it into tablets. And I remember freaking out because this is 2 weeks before.
Oh my God.
We have a launch party. We had about 150 people confirmed to attend.
Wow.
Some of them, you know, people that I respect from the industry, my former bosses, some of them investors, some of them just like people I don't want to disappoint.
Press. Yeah, absolutely.
So I was panicking, and I go into, we've been really scrappy with how we think about everything at Seadrop, but that day, I remember it was a Friday afternoon, I get this call. I am like in the middle of the deep science research articles on how to increase powder flowability. I get to the point where I am calling professors who do research in this space. I am going on LinkedIn, finding out people at tablet manufacturers, in the pharma industry, people who work in powdered milk processing for baby formula. I'm trying to get so creative. I'm like, okay, if I had powdered sugar and needed to get it through a funnel, can you put like a vibrating ball in there to get it to go through the machinery? Like, we are getting creative. And I end up, after cold emailing all these people, hearing back from this professor at Purdue, who I am still so grateful for. His name was Kingsley Ambrose, and he gives me a call back, tells me how to regranulate the powder. At the same time, my manufacturer, who's phenomenal, was also figuring out the same thing. We are all on the phone together, and we come up with a new solution to regranulate. And by the end of that day, we end up having a solution. We pressed the tablets in time. The tablets actually arrived to the warehouse 1 day before we launched, and it all worked out, but no one knew that was going on behind the scenes.
Wow.
And I would say that ties with my advice to founders, and that you can't really plan for everything no matter how hard you try, and you have to stay scrappy. Even if you've raised venture capital, keep that scrappy mentality, because there are going to be days where your job is going to be cold calling people and trying to get really creative and thinking, okay, maybe baby formula is the most parallel to what I'm creating, and those people in manufacturing can help me right now. So it's things like that you have to kind of expect and embrace, but it makes the job so much more exciting in a way. So, and it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, no 2 days are the same. Wow.
I can definitely see that McKinsey mentality right there. Like, it sounds like a case that they would give you in a case interview.
I know.
Like,
those like
right?
random industries.
Industries.
Farming.
Yeah, they're like
semiconductor.
exactly like a baby formula manufacturers having that. Like, that is awesome. That is amazing. And I love that attitude too.
I'd love to talk a little bit about the pre-launch journey. So, of course, you have the tablets. When you were deciding whether to do bar or liquid or whatever type of solution, did you talk to consumers, like users? How did you kind of incorporate something that I remember learning in college in marketing is like human-centered design? So, like thinking about your end user and consumer. So, did you do like interviews with people around you, people in the industry? How did you actually get to decide that you wanted to do the tablet?
Yeah, we did a lot actually on the consumer research piece pre-launch. And it's so funny because no one knows that all went into the development of this behind the scenes. It was kind of in 3 phases. One is while I was working in the industry, I just learned a lot about consumer behavior and was reading all of these insights reports and just learned a bit about behavior, shopping trends. I had a couple hunches for things on the category, like the fact that consumers are most likely to try a new brand if that brand is launching a cleanser because it's a rinse-off product. So I got insights like that pre even starting Seadrop. The second piece was on running surveys because that's a great way to get data at scale. And I ran 2 100-person surveys pre-launch, understanding people's purchase behavior, their attitudes to sustainability, their interest in something like this in a tablet format. I was asking kind of people in the target demographic as well, and had some phenomenal interns who helped out with these surveys, but that also helped inform the product launch strategy and the actual like ingredients and product itself. And then finally did so many interviews. We did focus groups with 4 to 5 interviewees at the same time. We also did one-on-one interviews, and I believe we talked to over 200 consumers in that product development phase to understand their attitudes to bar soap or powder formulas or whatever it may be. From those, a couple key things I learned. One is that when it comes to a cleanser, consumers really don't like that drying feeling that a lot of foaming cleansers leave on your skin, where your skin feels like a desert after you're done cleansing. That is just something that they've learned to accept because that's normal for a lot of these cleansers on the market. But that helped me inform our product strategy, where we wanted to create a foaming cleanser that was so hydrating and left your skin feeling so soft when you're done that you don't feel like it's cracked like a desert when you're done. The second thing we learned is that, it's funny, on sustainability, a lot of people on surveys say they really care about sustainability, but I ended up actually calling, it was McKinsey surveys, they showed the same thing, and I called a friend who had run one of these surveys on sustainability, and I was like, tell me, because these Gen Z respondents say they're willing to pay more for sustainability, but then they're also buying from Shein, like what's going on here? And she was so helpful. She actually told me that when people take surveys, they want to feel good about themselves, like in the moment.
Yeah.
And they might say something to make themselves feel good, but they don't act that way in real life. And that's especially true for sustainability, where there's a lot of guilt associated with it. So one thing I learned from the focus groups that I didn't even get from the surveys is that sustainability is not the top priority. And that's why when it came to Seadrop, even though we've created a zero waste refill system, which is truly so difficult to do for a brand, that's not what we lead with, because at the end of the day, we wanted to create a really phenomenal product, and the zero waste element is on me and on the brand to create, but it's not what consumers are demanding. So I think that was another interesting insight that we got from the focus groups, from the surveys, and that kind of helped inform not only the colors and the design, but also what the product looks like and how it feels on your skin.
Yeah, I think that's like the voting booth effect too. It's why polls will always be somewhat off, because actually women are actually the worst offenders. People will lie about the candidate, or like especially when it comes to like tax polls and things like that, before they actually vote against something in the voting booth, because they don't want people to know what they're actually voting for, and even it could be like socially unacceptable. So it's like you want to effectively be a better person than you are, which is interesting, which is reflected in focus groups too sometimes.
That's so interesting. This is the psychology of it is so fascinating. And that's why it's so fun working in consumer, and when you guys are talking to other consumer brands and investors, it's like all about psychology, and it's so interesting.
It is. It's fascinating. I love this idea that like cleansers are actually what people would try most often. That's really interesting. In your research too, how did you, because obviously you're just launching one product right now. I know everyone's skin is so different. Everyone can be so sensitive. Yeah. How did you sort of manage like your product for like, I guess the majority of people's skin types, and how was that? Was that challenging for you too?
Yeah, so definitely a top priority for Seadrop was to create products that work for everybody. And I think that it's not just in the spirit of inclusivity, which is just really important to me, but also from the perspective of you want to create products that are skin supportive and barrier strengthening. And a lot of those products can actually work for all skin types if you formulate them correctly. So a couple things that we did to make sure this works for all skin types. One is we didn't add any super harsh actives. So there's no, salicylic acid, there are no AHAs, BHAs that typically I think can be overloaded in cleansers anyway. And we deliberately wanted to create something that was barrier supportive, barrier strengthening, and kind of skin softening for all, which helps on the category side. The second piece is we kept the product artificial fragrance free, which is what actually causes a lot of sensitivity issues and irritation for people with sensitive skin. And I think that's one of the top questions we get. Are you fragrance free? So yes, no artificial fragrance. The third thing we did is add in so many hydrating ingredients that work for all skin types, so nothing super irritating. And when it came to our hyaluronic acid, instead of just adding in 1 molecular weight, we added in 3 molecular weights that target different layers of the skin at different levels with these new molecular weights. So the small molecular weight goes into the deepest layers, the largest one stays at the top. And finally, when it came to just how we think about creating something for all, we tested this product on with a dermatologist panel. We allergy tested it. We did the full HPIT panel, and we found that this one doesn't cause any irritation, no adverse side effects, and we wanted to make sure that clinically this really does work for all skin types. I will say that because inclusivity is at the heart of everything we do with future products, I want to make sure if we're going to launch a moisturizer, we either make one that works for everyone or we launch with multiple moisturizers to make sure that everyone feels included when we launch something. And I think that's something we see a lot in makeup with inclusivity, where brands will launch with a small shade range. I think that can be really frustrating, especially if the shade range isn't dispersed across different skin tones. And even though it's more difficult for a small brand to have that SKU complexity with trying to cater to everybody, I think it's so important to keep inclusivity at the core. And that's why we created the cleanser the way we did.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Well, I know you launched in October, and so you're selling online right now with e-commerce. What's next for Seadrop?
Yeah, the goal is to eventually get into retailers. The goal is to be in brick and mortar where people can touch and feel the sensorial aspect of the cleanser in real life. And at the same time, we're going to be pushing our D2C channels with organic marketing, influencer marketing, and paid media, which we're launching next week. So we're really now trying to build out that presence online. It's so funny because as a consumer brand, sometimes the things that take off are so unpredictable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We just had a creator's first video go viral a couple days ago, and it's so funny because you can't predict things like that happening, but when they do, they have such a great business impact. And that's why we're trying to keep everything happening in parallel and also keep that omni-channel approach, especially now with, you never know what's going on with TikTok getting banned. You never know.
Yeah.
So
gotta do it now.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah. And I know, love that you aim to be in retailers. I know also in the beauty industry, skin industry, I think relationships like salons, facial places, med spas are also interesting. And I think D2C has sort of taken over that market share. But is that a goal of yours too? Would you love to be partnering with like the rescue spas of the world? And do you hope that dermatologists sort of use your product as well?
Yes, absolutely. Definitely. If you know of anyone at these spas, let me know, because that is definitely a priority, especially for right now. I've talked to a couple estheticians and dermatologists who've tried the product, and when I hear their feedback, that's what makes me think, first, confidence that we built a great product. Second, that we need to work with these estheticians and dermatologists, because the feedback I've been hearing from both of them is that Seadrop cleanser actually helps hydrate their patients' skin so much that they're able to then tolerate other treatments better.
Yeah.
The estheticians tell me that they actually use Seadrop as a mask and they rub it into their client's skin for 30 seconds.
Awesome.
And then they find that those clients can tolerate retinols, AHAs, peels a little bit better after because their barrier is strengthened. I'm hearing similar feedback from dermatologists who also love the product. So hearing that makes me really want to partner with these more medical services, because there is that element of clinically developed clean skincare that also helps enhance the rest of your routine. And I definitely want to make that a priority for this year.
That's amazing. Yeah, absolutely. And awesome. Well, I mean, I'm a facial addict, so I'll definitely be promoting you guys. Like every place I go. And I think that's great to hear. Personally, for me, like I have very acne prone skin, and I'm absolutely gonna try your product because my cleansers are so drying, and I feel like I'm always just layering on millions of layers of moisturizer to try to get back. So
I just
I'll be
discovered hyaluronic acid, and it's been making my skin glow. So definitely.
And your skin is glowing. You look beautiful.
Yeah.
Like,
what's your skincare routine?
Like, oh my god, you need to be your own model. Like, you're so gorgeous. So I'm like, well, we gotta
look at you guys to model. That would be
oh my gosh.
Oh my god, yeah, totally. That'd be great.
One thing we like asking our guests before we end is what motivates you? What gets you up in the morning every day? What's a motto that you live by? What do you think?
Yeah, I think especially when you're working for a job that doesn't have an end time, because you're really the bottleneck is you for most things. What really keeps me going is knowing that this could be setting the standard for the next wave of skincare. And I think that if it were a brand I didn't resonate with so much, I would probably not be doing it. But knowing that this can set the standard for sustainability in beauty, this can spark conversations that we haven't had in honestly decades, because water has been the standard in skincare for so long. That's what keeps me going. And the other piece that I'm just really excited about is being a part of this female founder community, being a part of the women in consumer community is also just really energizing. Nothing makes me happier than conversations like these. And I think that building a brand or being in the space is just so energizing. So for anyone interested, just the people that you meet in that process end up giving you so much energy that it keeps you going. So definitely something positive to look to if you're in that space.
Awesome.
And same with us.
Yeah.
This has given me so much inspiration and
So
energy. And
exciting.
thank you so much for being on the pod.
Yeah, and how can our listeners access Seadrop? Are you on Instagram? Of course, you have your website, but how can they, consume?
Yeah, follow us on Instagram. It's at Seadrop Skincare. And if you're looking to buy, you can go on seadropskincare.com. If you use the code patent pending, you'll get 20% off. But hopefully you can check it out, and feel free to also DM the brand account if you have any questions. We're always here to help.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Serena. And thank you, listeners of Women's Plain.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Thank you.